Hello again YouTube and welcome back to my channel. In this video I go over the simple steering setup I made for my most recent wagon build. I started out with just an idea of where I wanted the wheels to sit. The last wagon I built, I used a caster in the steering head, but for this wagon I really wanted to build a steering assembly that used tie rods. For the beam, I used two pieces of square tube. The top piece of tubing I bent up to allow for spacing for the spindle. Each spindle assembly is made up of two sets of bolts. The axle bolt and one large bolt with two sleeves that will attach to the upper and lower portions of the beam. We'll call this the kingpin. It's essentially a hinged pin. I made a video about a hinged pin a while back. I'll link up to that here as well as in the description below so you get a better idea of what's going on there. I set the free play for the axle shaft with the nut and bolt tightened against the wheel. I did this for both sides. Then I cut the nut from the back side so I could weld that nut onto the kingpin while keeping the same end play in the axle shaft. This ensures I won't be able to over tighten the bolt because it's going to be hitting the kingpin, and it's also going to keep the spacing consistent for the axle shaft end play. Once I have the axles mounted, I could begin constructing the tie rod assembly. Tie rod assembly was built from 3 pieces of flat stock, which we'll call the steering arms, 2 smaller bolts, and 1 large central bolt, which we'll call the steering shaft. The steering arms were all pre-drilled for the bolts, and I used little turnbuckles for the tie rod linkages. The steering shaft is made up of a long bolt and a few sets of washers. I welded the thickest washer to the beam so I could begin the welding for the steering arms. One steering arm gets welded to the bottom of the steering shaft. Onto each kingpin bolt, I weld the steering arm. Once the steering arms are welded, I was able to bolt everything up and reinstall the wheels. Alright, we've come to the end of the video now. This was the first time I ever built a steering assembly this way, so I learned a lot and I had a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, I ask that you go down, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.